When the moment comes, when your beloved companion takes that final breath, the silence it leaves behind can feel unbearable. You're not just saying goodbye to an animal, you're parting from a soul that loved you without condition, without agenda, without words. It's a kind of love that wrapped itself around your heart, not with demands, but with presence. A tail wag at your worst moment, eyes that watched you without judgment, the soft weight of their body curled up beside you on nights when the world felt too heavy. And then, suddenly, they're gone, or at least, that's what it feels like. You might have replayed those last moments over and over in your mind. The fading heartbeat, the stillness, the way their body seemed so unfamiliar when their spirit was no longer animating it. Maybe it happened in your arms. Maybe you found them curled up in a quiet corner. Maybe you had to make the hardest decision any loving guardian can make, to let them go. And now, there's an ache in your chest that refuses to fade. An emptiness where joy used to live. You miss the sound of their paws. You still catch glimpses of them in the corner of your eye. Sometimes, late at night, you swear you can still feel them near you. And perhaps, you can. What if I told you that what you witnessed wasn't an ending, but a passage? That when your animal's body stilled, what truly mattered, their consciousness, their essence, their spirit, did not disappear. Death, as we've been taught to fear it, is not destruction. It's not loss in the way we think of loss. It's a doorway, a shift, a quiet exhale before the soul steps into a new form of being. You may not be able to see them, but that doesn't mean they're gone. Imagine that energy never dies, it simply changes shape. The love you shared, the memories you created, the bond that felt deeper than logic, those things were not tied to muscle and bone, they were made of energy, and energy never ends. When your animal's body gave out, their soul didn't vanish, it expanded, it slipped from one frequency into another, from the visible to the invisible, from the seen into the felt, that feeling you sometimes get, the sudden warmth in the room, the sensation that you're not alone, the flicker of memory that makes you stop in your tracks, that's not your imagination playing tricks on you, that's your companion brushing against the veil, reminding you, I'm still here. You see, love doesn't recognize separation. It doesn't stop at the threshold of death. If anything, it becomes even purer without the limits of the physical. Your connection with your animal was not just emotional, it was spiritual. It reached beyond lifetimes. You may have thought you chose them, brought them into your life, fed them, cared for them, but on a deeper level, it was mutual. They chose you, too. They came into your world, not by accident, but by design. There was a contract, not the kind you sign with ink, but the kind your souls whispered before you ever met in this life. Let's find each other again, they said. And you did. And now, even though the physical part of your journey together has ended, the soul part has not. In fact, it's just shifted into another form. Their presence is no longer held within fur or feather or skin, it's now woven into the fabric of your energy, into your dreams, into the subtle moments where you feel them so clearly it stops you in your tracks. Your pet was never just an animal. They were a teacher, a guardian, a mirror. They reflected parts of you back to yourself, the parts that could love without condition, trust without hesitation, and live in the moment without regret. They were there for your laughter, your breakdowns, your boredom, your silence. They stayed by your side when others couldn't, and even now, especially now, they still are. Death, in this sense, is not a separation. It's a soft return. They return to the source of all life, but they don't forget. Their spirit becomes part of a larger consciousness, but your bond is a tether that keeps you close. Some people believe that after an animal dies, their soul ascends into a kind of spiritual realm, not built of clouds and gates, but of frequency and light, a place where healing happens, where love is magnified, where soul families gather, and in that place, they're not alone. They're surrounded by other souls they knew, human and animal alike. They're continuing their journey, just like you are. But they're not far. They're not lost. And they're certainly not gone. Maybe you've felt their presence in your dreams. You're walking together again. Or they're younger, stronger, healed. Maybe you've heard their paws in the hallway, or sensed them curling up at your feet at night. That's not just memory, that's contact. The space between worlds is thinner than you think. and when love is real, it becomes a bridge. There are countless stories of animals coming back in moments of deep grief, not to haunt, but to comfort. To say, "I'm okay, you don't have to worry about me, I'm free now." Some appear as signs: a favorite bird sitting outside the window, a toy mysteriously moved, a sudden breeze in a closed room. Others come in silence, as peace that wasn't there a moment before. Your heart knows when it's them. And here's something to hold close: your goodbye wasn't final, it was simply, "I'll see you again," because this journey doesn't end here. Souls travel, they return. Some come back in new bodies, ready for another walk alongside you. Some stay as guides, whispering to you through intuition. And some wait, patiently, loyally, for the day your path leads back to theirs. You don't have to stop loving them, you don't have to move on, you only have to move forward, carrying them with you in a new way. They're not heavy, they're not holding you back, they've become part of your inner life, your wisdom, your growth. So when the pain feels too much, when the grief makes it hard to breathe, remember this: their spirit didn't leave you. It just changed form. They didn't die. They transitioned. And the love between you, that timeless, wordless love, it lives on. They were your companion in this life. And they remain your companion in spirit. Not as a memory, but as a presence. Not as a story of loss, but as a reminder of just how infinite love can be. They're closer than you think, and they always will be. You've probably felt it before, that silent knowing when you lock eyes with an animal. Maybe it was a dog sitting quietly beside you as you cried, or a bird that paused just long enough to feel like a message. There's something ancient in those moments, something you can't quite put into words, but you feel it in your chest. In those moments, have you ever asked yourself, do they have souls too? This question isn't new. In fact, it's one of the oldest questions in the human heart. And the deeper you go into ancient spiritual traditions, the clearer the answer becomes. Long before modern religions told us what to believe, the oldest teachings on earth were already whispering that animals are not just alive, they are sacred. In Hinduism, the soul is called Atman, Nom, a spark of the divine that exists in all living beings, not just humans, all. That includes the cow, the elephant, the monkey, the snake. In these traditions, animals are not lesser beings, they are carriers of karma, just like you. They are born, they suffer, they die, and they are reborn, over and over. Not because they're being punished, but because, like you, they are learning, growing, evolving. And if you've ever had a dog that stayed by your side through the hardest chapters of your life, then you know that kind of loyalty, that kind of love, doesn't come from something soulless, that comes from spirit. In Native American spirituality, animals are teachers. They are not just part of nature, they are nature's voice. Each animal has a message. The wolf brings protection, the hawk brings vision. The deer teaches gentleness. When an animal crosses your path, it isn't by chance, it's communication, spirit to spirit. Some tribes even believe that we are born with animal spirits assigned to guide us, not metaphorically, but spiritually. They walk beside you, not just in dreams, but in waking life. If you've ever had the sense that a certain animal keeps showing up in your life, again and again, that's not coincidence, that's connection, that's soul. Even mystics throughout history have echoed this truth. They've written about animals who knew when their owners were coming home, even when they were miles away. Cats who refused to leave their human's grave, horses who mourned, birds who sung to the dying. Science tries to explain this as instinct or coincidence, but deep down, you know better, because soul recognizes soul. Think about this. If you believe you are more than just a body, if you believe that you are a soul inhabiting flesh, then why would that not be true for the ones with fur and feathers and scales? If consciousness exists beyond biology, why would it stop at the human form? Some say that only humans have the capacity for higher thought, and that's what separates us. But tell that to the whale that sings songs passed down through generations. Tell that to the mother elephant who carries the bones of her dead calf across miles of desert, unable to let go. That isn't instinct, that's grief, that's love, that's soul. Now imagine this: a lion in Africa, a domestic cat on a windowsill, a crow in the sky, all of them part of the same grand system of evolution, not just physical, but spiritual, reincarnating, learning, remembering. Some souls take the form of animals to experience life through the senses, to learn about freedom, loyalty, survival, companionship, or even sacrifice. Have you ever looked into the eyes of an animal and felt like they were looking through you? That's because they are. There's a reason children connect so easily with animals. It's not just because they're cute or playful. It's because children still remember what we forget, that the soul sees clearly, long before the mind gets in the way. Animals live in the present. They love without agenda. They forgive without words. That kind of presence, that's the essence of spirit. In Buddhist teachings, the cycle of rebirth includes animals too. A soul can incarnate as a human in one life, and as an animal in the next, based on karma and lessons not yet learned. That squirrel on your balcony, that ant crawling across your table, that dog at the shelter with eyes like they've lived 100 lives, they may have once walked this earth in human form. So when someone tells you animals don't have souls, they're not speaking from wisdom, they're speaking from disconnection, from forgetting. But you haven't forgotten, have you? You remember. You remember how it felt when your childhood dog seemed to understand your sadness without needing words. You remember how your cat stayed by your bed the night you couldn't sleep. You remember the way that bird landed right in front of you the day after someone you loved passed away, and you knew it wasn't just a bird. All of this raises a bigger question. If animals have souls, and they do, then what happens to them when they die? Where do they go? Do they move on to another body? Do they stay near us? Do they wait for us in some hidden dimension, just beyond the veil? The truth is, deeper than most are willing to see. But if you're here, it's because you're ready to go deeper. And once you understand what truly happens to them after death, you'll never see them the same way again. Because the love you shared, the bond you felt, the way they changed you, it didn't end with their last breath. It only just began. There's a moment, so brief and yet so monumental, when the energy that animates a beloved animal lifts from the body. It happens quietly, without fireworks or ceremony, and yet the shift is cosmic. 1 second, you're looking into the eyes of your companion, feeling their warmth, the rise and fall of breath, the steady beat of life beneath fur or feathers. The next, something is different. The body is still there, but the essence, the light, the spirit that made them who they are, it's gone from sight. Not gone from existence, just gone from this particular layer of reality. To understand what really happens in that moment, you have to step beyond what the physical world teaches you. Because death is not a destruction of life, it's a transition of frequency. Your animal doesn't vanish, they shift. Just as ice turns to water and then to vapor, your companion's soul moves from dense physical vibration to a finer, higher one. It's not an ending, it's an expansion. Their spirit steps into a state of pure consciousness. Why? A vibrational existence unbound by the limitations of matter. In those first moments after passing, the energy of the animal remains nearby, not in a spooky or haunting way, but in love. The connection doesn't sever. Their presence can linger, sometimes stronger than it ever was in life. They may still be trying to comfort you, confused about what's happening, or even filled with joy at the newfound lightness of their being. And you, still tethered to the physical, might feel something, a strange stillness, a shimmer in the room, a pressure in the air, like someone is sitting beside you, though no one is there. Some people speak of a distinct moment when they felt the energy rise. The temperature changes, the room feels thicker, as though holding a breath, or lighter, like something sacred just happened. Sensitive individuals have reported seeing a brief glow leave the body, a light that doesn't belong to electricity or sunbeams. Sometimes it's a flash. Sometimes it's a presence that fills the space, warm and unmistakable. It's not hallucination, it's recognition. The soul saying, "I'm still me, I just left the costume behind." This vibrational shift doesn't just happen randomly, it's guided, it's orchestrated with care. Just as birth is a transition into this world, death is a birth into the next. Many traditions describe loving beings, spiritual helpers, or even other animals waiting on the other side, ready to receive your companion. It's not a dark tunnel into nothingness, it's a return home. A slipping into a realm where there is no pain, no fear, no aging, no confusion, just clarity, just love, just freedom. And yet, for those left behind, the absence can feel unbearable. But there are moments when that veil between worlds thins, when your animal might reach back to let you know they made it. These signs don't come through logic, they come through presence, through feeling, through symbols. You might wake up in the middle of the night and swear you felt them curl up beside you. You could hear the familiar tapping of paws on the floor, even though the house is still. Their favorite toy might mysteriously move from one place to another. A collar chimes when no wind is present. Or maybe it's a dream so vivid that it doesn't feel like a dream at all. It feels like a visit. They're there, whole, radiant, sometimes younger, sometimes just the way you remember them. And when you wake up, there's a strange sense of peace, like they really came, because they did. Smells are another common sign. You might suddenly smell their fur, the scent of the treats they loved, the musky comfort of their bed, even when it's been washed or put away. These scents don't come from memory, they come from contact. They are echoes of energy, a gentle nudge from the other side to say, I'm here. Animals, in their innocence, don't fear death the way humans often do. They don't resist the transition. They surrender to it with grace. And because of that, their passage is often smoother, clearer, and filled with more light than we realize. Their spirits don't carry guilt or unresolved regrets. They carry love. And that love becomes like a thread between dimensions. Still alive, still active, still able to touch you. You may notice changes in your environment in the days or weeks after they pass. Other pets in the home may behave strangely, looking into corners, wagging their tails at nothing, avoiding certain rooms, or sleeping in their friend's old spot, as if they still feel them there. Children may talk about seeing them, or you might catch a glimpse yourself, not with your eyes, but with something deeper. The soul has its own way of perceiving. A part of you knows when they're near. This vibrational consciousness they now inhabit is not far away. It's layered right over this one, like overlapping waves. That's why you can feel them in quiet moments. That's why when you're crying and suddenly feel calm, as if someone is comforting you, they often are. That's why when you speak to them, whispering into the silence, reaching out in grief, sometimes you feel something back. Because they hear you, they feel you, your words reach across the boundary like ripples in a still pond. The energy that made them who they were, their quirks, their love, their loyalty, it doesn't get erased. It becomes more fluid, more expansive. They are no longer limited to one place or form. They can be near you, and also in the presence of other souls they loved. They can exist in a realm of peace and still make themselves known to you when you need them most, and they often do. Love, after all, is the great connector. It transcends time, space, and even death, and animals, perhaps more than anyone else, understand that truth on a cellular level. They love without hesitation. They attach not because they need to, but because they choose to. And that love doesn't die when the body does. It multiplies, it spreads, it radiates. So when you find yourself overwhelmed with loss, when the grief crashes down like waves, take a moment and breathe. Close your eyes, not to forget, but to listen. Feel the energy around you. Feel your own heart. Ask silently, "Are you still with me?" And then be still. Sometimes the answer will come not as words, but as a calm, as a warmth, as a knowing. That's how vibration speaks, not with sound, but with sensation. You'll feel it in your bones before you understand it with your mind. That subtle shift in the air, that whisper in your chest, that's not emptiness, that's them. They've just changed form, and now they move through a world without walls, without limits, without pain. But the love between you, that still has a place here. It still lives in you, and because of that, so do they. They are not a ghost, they are not gone, they are presence, made pure. They are vibration, returned to the infinite. And when you miss them, when you long for one more day, remember, they're only a breath away, a heartbeat away, a whisper away. Because the moment they passed, their energy didn't end. It simply went home. What if the love you shared with your pet didn't end at death, but continued, quietly, just beyond the veil? What if every wag of a tail, every purr, every nuzzle against your hand was not only a memory, but a presence that still lingers in the space between this world and the next? For centuries, people have turned to spiritual seers in times of loss, AWEL 3, searching for answers, longing for connection, desperate to believe that death isn't the final page. Among the most intriguing sources of spiritual insight were documented sessions where grieving families came forward, asking the same aching question you've likely asked yourself at some point: where did my beloved pet go? The answers they received weren't vague comforts or abstract metaphors. They were precise, clear, and deeply moving. In session after session, individuals described seeing their pets again, not in dreams, but in full awareness. These weren't hazy visions or imagined comforts. These were vivid, visceral reunions. A man who lost his loyal German shepherd to cancer reported hearing the dog's familiar bark just days after the burial, echoing at the back door where he always stood. A woman, stricken with grief after her cat passed quietly in her sleep, awoke to find the unmistakable pressure of her feline companion curled beside her, just like always. The bed was empty, but the presence was undeniable. Again and again, these stories poured in. From ordinary people who weren't trying to prove anything. They weren't looking for fame or attention. They were just broken-hearted humans who missed someone who couldn't speak, but once spoke volumes through love. And the messages that came through in response carried a shocking consistency. That animals, especially pets, who had formed a deep emotional bond with their human counterparts, continue their companionship long after death, not as ghosts, not as shadows, but as vibrant, evolving spirits. They don't disappear into some distant realm. They linger, watch, protect, and even serve, still part of your spiritual circle, even if unseen. It might sound strange until you remember how connected you felt with them, even in life. How your dog knew when you were sad before you ever said a word. How your cat would stare into your eyes with an intensity that made you question who was really doing the watching. These weren't just animals. They were beings of awareness, beings of intention, beings of love. And love, as you've come to understand, is not a chemical. It's not a fluke of biology. It's energy. It's consciousness. And consciousness doesn't die. If you've ever felt your pet's presence after they passed, nighttime brush against your leg, the sound of paws across the floor, or a strange sense that you're not alone in the room, you're not crazy, you're remembering, you're tuning in to something your heart already knows. Many of the spiritual sessions documented something even deeper, that animals, in their loyalty and unconditional love, often continue their service in the afterlife. Just as they protected you in life, some stay near to comfort you through grief, transition, and even danger. There were stories of pets waking their humans in time to escape house fires, pets who showed up in visions during hospital stays or surgeries, pets who appeared to children, offering comfort when no one else could. These aren't just isolated events, they point to a larger truth, that animals are not only souls, but purposeful souls. They are not random additions to your journey, they are part of it, and sometimes they are the quiet guardians of it. One powerful account shared the experience of a woman who had lost both her child and her golden retriever within a year. During a session intended to bring her peace, the message that came through wasn't about the past, it was a revelation of the now. She was told that both the child and the dog were together, learning, growing, and bonded beyond this realm. The pet had not only remained with her child in the afterlife, but was helping guide that soul through its next stage. Their companionship, forged in the physical world, had simply changed form, but it had never broken. There's something deeply humbling in that idea, that while you move through grief here, they are still serving, still watching, still holding space for your healing. Some sessions even suggested that pets will wait for their humans, patiently, lovingly, until it's time to reunite. And when that time comes, the reunion is immediate. No confusion, no delay. You step out of this body, and they're right there, tails wagging, purring, running into your arms with the same joy they showed you every day on Earth. Think about that for a moment. In a world that so often tells us to be realistic, that death is the end, that animals are just instinct-driven creatures, these accounts defy everything we've been taught. Because they don't come from theories, they come from experience. They come from people who walked through grief and found, on the other side, that their beloved companions had simply shifted forms. So then we ask the bigger question, why would animals be capable of this? The answer, whispered through ancient texts and spiritual insights alike, is simple. Animals are part of divine evolution. They are not accidents of nature. They are not beneath us. They are evolving, just as we are, though often in quieter, more innocent ways. While humans learn through pain, struggle, and complexity, animals learn through presence, loyalty, and love. Their path may not involve words or intellect, but it involves spirit. And their souls evolve by expressing the very qualities we often struggle to master: unconditional love, forgiveness, loyalty, living in the now. Your pet may have chosen to walk this life with you not because they needed to learn, but because you did. Because your soul needed that kind of love, that kind of grounding, that kind of presence, and so, their soul entered your life not to be taught, but to teach. This isn't fantasy, it's soul memory. You already feel the truth of this. You know it in the way you still whisper their name when the room is quiet, in the way your eyes still search the spot where they used to lay, in the way your heart still reaches for them in the silence. They're not gone, they're waiting, still loving you, still watching over you, still walking with you on your path toward healing, growth, and return. And when the time is right, you'll see them again, not as memories, not as dreams, but as souls, whole, bright, recognizing you with the same love they carried through lifetimes, because what you shared with them was not of this world, it was eternal. There are animals that come into your life and instantly feel familiar, as if you've known them before. They don't just fit into your world, they seem to have been waiting for you. From the very beginning, there's an ease, a deep resonance that goes beyond the typical affection people feel for pets. You look into their eyes and something stirs. Something ancient, like a reunion more than a first meeting. You can't explain it in words, but your heart knows. This one is different. This one is yours. To understand why this happens, you have to look at the nature of animal consciousness, not just as biology, but as spirit. Because animals, like humans, exist not only in the physical, but also in the energetic and spiritual realms. And not all animal souls are the same. Some operate as part of a collective energy, not a group soul, while others evolve through a more individualized journey. Both are sacred, both have purpose, but they feel very different when they touch your life. The idea of a group soul is ancient. It's the understanding that certain species, particularly those less entwined with human emotion and experience, function as extensions of a shared consciousness. Think of a flock of birds moving as one, a school of fish turning in perfect unison, a colony of ants working in silent harmony. These creatures are not mindless, but deeply connected to a larger, unified intelligence. They don't need individuality to fulfill their purpose. Their strength is in their unity. Their wisdom is instinctual, flowing from the collective field they are part of. Some domesticated animals also begin their journey in this group soul state. Cats, dogs, horses, even birds or rabbits, 7-7, many begin as emissaries of their species' collective spirit. They bring the energy of their kind into our homes and lives. They teach us about presence, patience, affection, and care. But for some, something extraordinary happens. They begin to individualize. Through the intensity of their bond with a human, through love, attention, and shared experience, they begin to separate from the group soul. They develop preferences, personalities, habits, even what seems like emotional depth. They don't just live alongside you, they become part of your story, and in doing so, they take a step toward becoming their own soul, distinct from the collective they came from. This is why not all pets feel the same. Some bring joy, company, routine. They're beautiful, sweet, comforting, but others reach into your soul and change something there. They show up when you're going through a crisis. They sit beside you when no one else understands. They teach you how to love again, or how to trust, or how to let go. Their timing is uncanny. Their gaze feels ancient. And when they leave, the grief is not just sadness. It's soul-level sorrow, like losing a piece of yourself. That kind of love is not instinctual. It's spiritual. It's bonded across dimensions. You may have felt this without having words for it. Maybe you've had many animals in your life, but there's one you still dream about. One that changed everything. One that you can't speak about without tears, even years after they've passed. That wasn't just an animal you happened to adopt or rescue. That was a soul who came into your life for a reason, and that reason goes far deeper than companionship. These animals are often sent to us as spiritual mirrors. They reflect who we really are, underneath the roles and masks. They hold space for us in our most broken moments. They don't run from our darkness. They don't flinch at our pain. They sit in the silence with us when the world is too loud, and somehow, without saying a word, they help us heal. They bring us back to ourselves. This is the work of an individualized soul. 1940. One who chose you as much as you chose them. It's not always obvious at first. Some of these animals come into our lives quietly, almost by accident. A stray that wouldn't leave your doorstep. A shelter dog that looked at you and wouldn't look away. A pet you weren't planning to adopt, but who immediately felt like home. These are not coincidences. These are soul contracts being activated. Somewhere, in a realm beyond time, your paths were already intertwined. You might wonder why this animal chose you, why they came into your life exactly when they did, and more importantly, why it hurt so deeply when they left. It's because they weren't just fulfilling a momentary role. They were helping you grow, helping you remember who you are, helping you awaken parts of your soul that had been dormant, and in doing so, they were growing too. Because animal souls evolve, just like human souls, they expand through love, experience, and service. A soul that begins in the collective can, through deep connection with a human, begin to individuate, to grow its own identity, its own memories, its own energetic signature. And over time, they become more than just an animal spirit. They become a companion spirit, a guide, a being capable of choosing future paths, returning if needed, and participating consciously in the evolution of both themselves and those they love. This is why some people report feeling like their old pet returned in a new body, a new dog with the same habits, a new cat who sleeps in the exact same place, a bird who mimics the same unique sound their old one used to make. These are not just odd coincidences. Sometimes they are signs that the soul returned, that the journey between you wasn't over, that the love was so deep, so transformative, it created a bond strong enough to defy death itself. This level of connection is not common, not because animals are incapable of it, but because it requires both sides to be spiritually ready. Sometimes we aren't open. Sometimes we're too distracted or disconnected to notice when a soul like this arrives. But when both hearts are open, when the animal is ready to individualize and the human is willing to love at that depth, something beautiful happens. Two souls meet in a way that echoes across lifetimes. That's what makes some pets feel like destiny. It's not just their behavior or their breed. It's the feeling in your chest when you look at them, the knowing, the sense that they've come home. And when they leave, that knowing doesn't die. It lingers, it waits, because that bond was never built on biology, it was built on spirit. So if you've ever felt like your animal was more than just a pet, more than just a creature sharing space in your home, trust that feeling. If you've ever felt that your connection with them transcended time, that it shaped who you are, that it awakened something sacred in you, then you've known soul-bonded love. And that love, unlike instinct, is not tied to form. It is not limited by species. It is not undone by death. They came to you because they saw your light, and you saw theirs, and through your time together, both of you evolved. Both of you remembered something eternal, something divine. That's not just affection, that's recognition, that's soul meeting soul, one fur, or feather, or paw, or hoof, and once that happens, it never really ends, it only deepens, it only waits for the next chapter. When an animal dies, something deep within you breaks. It's not just the absence of their body, it's the silence that follows, the leash untouched, the toy unmoved, the routine undone. But beyond that grief, beyond the ache of physical loss, there's a question that starts to form quietly inside your soul. Where did they go? You may have felt them near, in the days or weeks after their passing, a familiar sound, a sudden presence, a warmth on the bed. These aren't figments of imagination, they're echoes of a truth your spirit already knows. When an animal dies, they don't vanish, they transition. They move from the visible to the invisible, from the physical to the vibrational, but they are never gone. In spiritual teachings and near-death experiences across cultures and generations, there are consistent descriptions of realms that animals transition into. These aren't random dreamscapes or cold clinical heavens. They are places of light, living, breathing dimensions where the soul continues, heals, and remembers. And many of these realms are designed with animals in mind. These realms aren't floating clouds or golden gates. They are vibrant fields, expansive meadows, dense forests, filled with light, running rivers, and sunlit hills. They're worlds of color more vivid than anything you've ever seen on Earth. There are no cages, no pain, no fences, no leashes, only freedom, the kind of freedom you always wished for them while they were here. But now, they have it. In many near-death accounts, individuals who temporarily crossed into the other side spoke of seeing animals there, not just their own pets, but herds of deer, birds with radiant feathers, wolves with eyes like starlight. These weren't hallucinations or wishful thinking. They were vivid, real, and emotionally overwhelming. The people who returned often said the animals glowed not with physical light, but with a kind of soul light, a warmth, a presence that wrapped around them like love itself. Some described walking through fields and having their beloved pets run to greet them, one quote, just like they used to at the door. Only now, they were younger, stronger, and filled with a deeper awareness. They weren't just excited, they knew things, they understood. Their eyes, once gentle and curious, now carried a wisdom that surpassed the human mind. These animals weren't just in spirit, they were spirit. These spiritual planes are not all the same. Just like Earth has different continents and ecosystems, the other side has many levels, many realms, each matching the vibration of the soul entering it. For animals, especially those who spent their lives loving and serving humans, there are specific environments created to reflect their energy and needs. These spaces are not only peaceful, they're purposeful. Imagine a dimension where every need is met through vibration, where hunger doesn't exist because energy is shared freely, where there is no fear, no pain, no disease, no bras, only growth and joy. These are realms of healing, not just for animals, but for the bond they formed with you. Many spiritual accounts describe these places as gardens of reunion, soft, glowing spaces where animals and their human companions meet again between lives. You don't have to search for them, they find you instantly, instinctively, because love doesn't need directions. Some souls, particularly those of animals who suffered or died traumatically, move first through a vibrational realm of healing. This is a soft, slow environment, like a cradle of light. Here, their energy is cleansed, restored, and rebalanced. Every scar of fear, abandonment, or pain is gently unwound from their being. They're not alone in this place. Guides, not in human form, but as luminous presences, care for them, comfort them, and help them remember who they really are, divine expressions of unconditional love. You see, animals don't carry ego. They don't fear death the way humans do. They don't resist the soul's return. Their transition is often more graceful, more fluid, because their connection to Source was never broken by belief. And because of this, they often rise into realms of light faster than we do, not as a reward, but as a natural return. And what's more beautiful, many wait for you there. If the bond you shared was soul deep, if there was true love, then it acts like a magnetic thread between your spirit and theirs. In life, you were their home. In death, they become part of your home in the beyond. There are even accounts of animals acting as guides for their humans, not metaphorically but literally. During out-of-body experiences, some people describe being led by their former pets through these spiritual landscapes. A dog walking confidently down a path of light, a cat darting ahead, turning to wait, leading with calm familiarity. These aren't memories, these are reunions. And in that space, there is no language, no questions, no doubt, there's only knowing. The vibrational realm that animals enter is shaped by their essence. A wild horse returns to an endless plain, a sea turtle moves through crystalline waters without end. A hawk soars in an atmosphere of light, where gravity is a choice. And yet, despite the vastness of these worlds, when you arrive, they always find you, because in the heart of the infinite, love is the map. Even animals you may have briefly encountered or tried to save appear in these realms. That bird you rescued as a child, that injured squirrel you tried to nurse, that stray dog who disappeared before you could help. In the afterlife, your intention is remembered, your kindness recorded not in books, but in the energy you shared. And often, these souls greet you again, not out of obligation, but from gratitude. So when you sit quietly and miss them, when you whisper their name into the darkness, when tears well up without warning because the house feels too quiet now, know this: they are not far. In the realm of light, time doesn't exist the way it does here. For them, the separation is only a blink. The love you gave, the life you shared, it built a bridge, and they're already waiting on the other side of it. In the deepest moments of meditation, or even in your dreams, you may catch glimpses of that realm, a landscape that feels more real than waking life. A sudden appearance of their face, their voice, their presence. Don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away. These are not just memories, these are meetings. They come to remind you that you are never alone. That beyond the pain, beyond the physical loss, there is a field of eternal reunion. A place made not just for souls, but for the souls you loved. And when you finally return home, don't be surprised if you're greeted not by angels or gates or songs, but by the sound of paws against soft grass, running toward you, because to them, you are the light, and they never stopped waiting. There are moments in life that feel suspended, as if time bends, light shifts, and the air becomes unusually still. One of those moments is the sacred threshold between life and death. When a human soul prepares to leave the physical world, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Nota, something unseen by most, but deeply felt by those standing nearby. In those final hours, it is not uncommon for the dying to speak to someone who isn't physically present. They may smile at the foot of the bed, reach toward the ceiling, or whisper the name of a long-lost friend. And more often than we realize, that friend is not human at all. It's a beloved animal, a dog who passed away years ago, a cat whose purring once lulled them to sleep, or a horse they rode as a child, suddenly, unmistakably there. These aren't hallucinations, they aren't figments of a failing mind, they are reunions, quiet, sacred homecomings that go far beyond what science can explain. Animals, especially those who shared a soul-deep bond with us in life, have an incredible role in what can only be called the ministry of transition. They become escorts of the soul, guides through the thinning veil between this world and the next. And in doing so, they offer a gift no medicine, no doctrine, no human hand can provide: the energy of peace, love, and absolute trust at the most vulnerable moment of a lifetime. Many hospice workers and caregivers have witnessed this. People who had slipped into unconsciousness days earlier suddenly stir, their eyes moving to the corner of the room. Their breathing softens, and their features change. They might say softly, "He's here," or smile as tears roll down their cheeks. And when asked who they see, they say a name only family members would recognize, the name of a dog who died decades ago, or the kitten that curled beside them through childhood. It's as if the soul knows, even before the mind does, that it is being greeted, not with fear, not with darkness, but with familiarity. In the spirit world, these animals take on more than just the appearance of comfort. They step into service, not because they're required to, but because their love didn't end with death. They remember the hands that fed them, the voice that soothed them, the heart that welcomed them, and when the time comes, they return. But this time, it's not to be cared for, it's to do the caring. You might wonder what this looks like from the other side. Try to imagine it. A soul is lifting from the body, still half tethered to the physical, unsure of what comes next. Then, just ahead, a shape begins to take form. It's familiar, radiant, more real than anything else in the room. It's your dog, wagging his tail not with excitement, but with purpose. It's your cat, graceful and steady, leading you like they always did, to bed, to rest, to stillness. It's the animal who saw your truest self without ever needing a word, and now, they are here to guide you home. Some animals serve this role even if they didn't belong specifically to the person passing. In the spirit world, there are beings whose sole purpose is to comfort and accompany souls in transition. Many of them are animals. Their energy is pure, unburdened by ego or complexity. Their presence brings calm, reminding the departing soul that love still surrounds them. These spiritual animals don't just escort humans, they offer healing. In the in-between realm, where emotions rise to the surface and lifetimes pass through review, animals often step forward to help dissolve regret, soften grief, and hold the soul steady as it lets go of the material world. Think of a person who carried the weight of guilt or loss through their life. As they begin to transition, their emotional body becomes lighter, more open. This is when a once-lost pet might appear, not just to say hello, but to offer healing. The unconditional love that animal once gave in life becomes a balm that helps the soul release the heaviness it no longer needs to carry. The pain, the mistakes, the disappointments, animals don't judge them, they help dissolve them. This is why so many people who've had near-death experiences describe being greeted by animals. In that in-between space, where everything feels more real than real, they report seeing their childhood dog bounding toward them, or a cat perched quietly by their side. The emotions these encounters evoke are often so overwhelming that words fail. There's no fear, no confusion, just recognition, love, and an unshakable sense that everything is going to be okay. For some, these guides stay only briefly, escorting them through the tunnel of transition and then stepping aside as other beings arrive. For others, the animal remains by their side through the entire journey. It depends on the bond. It depends on the soul agreement made long before this life ever began. Because some animals were never meant to be with us only in life. They came to walk us all the way home. There are stories of people seeing paw prints on hospital beds where no animal has been. Blankets that suddenly warm, as if a small body just curled up beside them. Children who pass speaking of running in fields with pets who died before they were born. These moments aren't dreams. They are glimpses into a larger reality, one in which animals, in their humility and purity, play a far more sacred role than we've ever imagined. Even in the spiritual realm, their purpose continues. They become not only greeters, but teachers. Their simple presence can help the newly departed remember what really matters. The love they gave, the joy they shared, the moments of connection that seemed small in life but now shine with profound meaning. Animals, after all, don't care about titles or failures. They care about how deeply you loved, and in their presence that truth becomes clear. For those of us still here, grieving the loss of a loved one, knowing that their soul might have been met by a faithful pet, brings comfort like nothing else can. To imagine that, in their final breath, they weren't alone, that they were surrounded by familiar love, by a wagging tail or a soft purr, changes everything. It makes death less frightening, less cold. It restores dignity to something we often fear. And if you've ever lost an animal, know this: their service didn't end when they passed. They may still be at work, guiding others through transition, offering their energy where it's needed most. And when your time comes, when you begin that same sacred journey, don't be surprised if you see them again, standing at the edge of the light, waiting. Because for the souls who loved the deepest and gave the most, the journey back to one another is inevitable. There is no death that love cannot reach through, and no love as steady, as simple, or as eternal as the love of an animal who sees your soul and chooses to walk beside it, in this life and the next. No one warns you just how much it's going to hurt. You think you're prepared, you try to be strong, but when the moment comes, when they take their final breath, when the house goes quiet, when their bed sits untouched, the pain floods in like a wave you never saw coming. It doesn't just ache, it breaks something deep inside of you. And maybe what hurts the most is how few people understand it. You've heard the words before, it was just a pet. At least it wasn't a person. But those words don't touch the wound. They don't see the late nights you stayed up, watching their chest rise and fall. They don't see how they sat beside you through breakups, breakdowns, and griefs of every kind. They don't understand that this wasn't just an animal. This was a soul that loved you more purely than anything else in your life ever has. And that's the truth of it. The pain you feel is so deep, so sharp, because the love was so pure. Animals don't love with conditions. They don't care about your mistakes, your flaws, your moods. They don't hold grudges. They don't keep score. Every day, they show up with the same devotion, the same quiet understanding, the same unwavering loyalty. They love you when you're broken. They love you when you're distant. They love you when you can't even love yourself. That kind of love isn't common in this world. It's not diluted by pride or ego or expectation. It's raw, ancient, unfiltered, and when it's gone, it leaves a silence that echoes through your entire being. Grieving an animal can hurt more than grieving a person, and that doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. Because most of the time, human relationships are layered, complex, filled with words left unsaid, histories unresolved, but with an animal, the love is clean, it's uncomplicated, it's direct. You didn't need to explain yourself. You just had to be, and they loved you anyway. That's why the grief is sacred. It's not just about the one who died, it's about what they brought into your life, what they showed you, what they healed in you without even trying. If you look back, you'll probably see it clearly. How they arrived at exactly the right time. Maybe you didn't know it then. Maybe you just thought it was a cute coincidence. But now, looking at the timeline of your life, you can feel it. They were sent. Not randomly, not by chance, but by design. Before you came here, before you even took your first breath, there were contracts, soul agreements, plans made in realms beyond language, and some of those agreements were with the animals who would later walk beside you. You chose each other. They agreed to come into your life, to love you in a way no one else could, to help you feel safe when the world became too loud, to hold space for you when your heart broke, to teach you about presence and joy and forgiveness and grace. They didn't come to judge or fix or change you. They came to walk with you for a while, and when that while ends, no matter how long or short it was, the contract is fulfilled. But even knowing that doesn't soften the sharpness of their absence. You still miss the sound of their paws, the weight of them in your lap, the way their presence filled a room without saying a word. You still reach for them out of habit. You still think, for a split second, that you hear them. And then, you remember. And it hits again. But here's what most people never understand. Grief isn't the opposite of love. It's a proof of it. The pain you feel is the depth of your devotion echoing into the empty space they once filled. And though it's unbearable at times, it's also sacred, because it means that something real happened, something eternal, something your soul will carry forever. When you grieve an animal, you're not just mourning the end of their physical life, you're mourning a chapter of your own soul's evolution, because with them, you grew, you healed, you laughed. You softened. You became more you. Their presence opened something inside of you that nothing else could. And now, their absence is teaching you how to live without what once felt essential. And yet, they're not truly gone. Even in grief, their energy lingers. In the dreams that feel more like visits, in the moments of stillness when you sense something brushing by, in the inexplicable comfort that wraps around you when you cry. That's not just memory, that's presence. Their soul is still connected to yours, just in a different form now. Sometimes they leave quickly, a sudden illness, an accident, a moment you never expected. Other times they fade slowly, and you find yourself grieving them while they're still here. Either way, when they leave, you're left with a question no one can answer for you. Why did they have to go? The answer is hard, but it's real. They came for a reason, and they left when that reason had been fulfilled. Their journey with you wasn't about time, it was about purpose. Some animals stay for decades, others only pass through for a season, but both can leave the same kind of impact, a permanent shift in your soul, a memory that changes you, a love that never fades. And sometimes, their departure opens the doorway to your next spiritual chapter. Sometimes their leaving is the loss that breaks you open to something greater. It's not punishment, it's not cruelty, it's transformation. Your grief is sacred because it marks the end of something holy and the beginning of something eternal. There's no right way to grieve, no timeline, no rule book. But know this, every tear you cry, every ache you feel, is part of a love story that didn't end with death, it simply changed form. So be gentle with yourself, hold space for the ache, don't rush to move on, don't let anyone make you feel like it's too much or too long. This grief is your altar, it's where the soul of your companion still lives, in memory and in spirit. And when the pain feels too heavy, remind yourself of this truth. The love you shared didn't come from this world, and it doesn't end in this world either. They were your mirror, they were your healer, they were your teacher, and in ways you may not yet see, they still are. There's a certain silence that settles in after a beloved pet passes. It's not just the absence of footsteps, the missing jingling of a collar, or the empty space on the bed. It's something deeper, a quiet echo that seems to hum through your chest. But every now and then, that silence breaks. Maybe it's subtle, a sudden sound that doesn't belong, a shadow that shifts in a way it shouldn't, a dream so vivid it feels like you've been touched. And for a moment, you wonder, was that them? The truth is, it probably was. When a soul leaves the physical form, it doesn't dissolve, it transitions. And when a bond is as deep and sacred as the one you shared with your pet, that connection doesn't sever. It stretches, it evolves, but it doesn't break. That's why you may continue to feel them near, even long after their passing. That's why signs appear. Why moments of unexplainable warmth, emotion, or synchronicity seem to dance through your days. These are not tricks of the mind, these are messages, and they are real. Dreams are one of the most common ways pets reach back through the veil. But these are not ordinary dreams. They don't come like the flickering nonsense that plays out when your brain is processing the day. These dreams are vibrant, alive. You see your animal clearly, their eyes, their fur, their unique little expressions. You feel them, you might even smell them. And most importantly, there's a knowing, a deep inner awareness that this is more than imagination. This is contact. Many people describe waking from these dreams in tears, not of sadness, but of a strange, comforting joy, the kind of tears that only come when something sacred touches you. Sometimes the message in the dream is obvious, a look that says, "I'm okay," a peaceful moment together in a place that feels like heaven. Other times, it's more symbolic, your pet running through fields, playing with others, or leading you somewhere serene. But always, there's that deep sense of presence, and when you wake up, even if only for a moment, the grief feels lighter, like they were with you again, because they were. But not all signs come through sleep. Some appear in your waking life, when you least expect it. You may hear the distinct sound of their nails on the floor, even when no one's there. A toy might be moved to a place it hasn't been in weeks. You might swear you hear their collar jingle, only to find the room empty. These aren't coincidences, these are nudges. Gentle reminders that they haven't truly left, that their energy still moves through your space, still watches over you, still responds when you speak their name. There's also the mysterious way other animals can begin to act once one has passed. Maybe your remaining dog suddenly starts sleeping in your departed pet's favorite spot, something they never did before. Or a cat begins vocalizing in a tone that eerily mimics the one who's gone. Even animals you encounter outside your home, birds, squirrels, butterflies, might begin showing up in strange, consistent ways. A bird perching on the same branch every morning, a butterfly landing on your hand at the exact time you were thinking about them. These patterns aren't random. Animals are sensitive to spirit, they respond to energy, and sometimes they serve as messengers for those who can no longer use physical voices. The bridge between realms is not as solid as it seems. It bends, it breathes, it opens wider when love is strong, when grief is honest, and when your heart is open. The more you lean into that love, the more space you create for contact. But here's the key: you have to trust what you feel. The mind will try to explain it away. It will say you're just imagining things, that grief is playing tricks on you. But the soul knows better. The soul recognizes the language of energy, and that's the language your pet is now speaking. Energy has no boundaries. It doesn't recognize death as a wall. It recognizes vibration, frequency, intention. And when you think of your pet, when you feel that ache in your chest and send out a whisper of love, they feel it. Your thoughts become threads. Your memories become magnets. That's why, in moments of deep longing or love, you may suddenly feel them again. A chill up your spine, a flutter in your stomach, a wave of emotion that comes from nowhere. That's not nothing. That's them answering. Even electrical devices can become conduits. Maybe your phone lights up with an old photo you forgot was there. A song that reminds you of them begins to play randomly. A video of them pops up on your screen without warning. Technology may be modern, but energy is timeless. ETZ. And spirit finds ways to move through anything it can, especially when you're paying attention. You may find feathers in unexpected places, hear a sound that mimics their bark or meow, only to discover nothing is there. You might even catch a glimpse, just for a second, of their shape out of the corner of your eye. These are all ways spirit communicates, not always with words, but with presence, with resonance. And the more you acknowledge these moments, the more they appear. It's a relationship that doesn't end, it transforms. Your pet is now moving through the world in a different form, but their loyalty hasn't changed, their love hasn't lessened. In fact, now that they're not bound by time, space, or form, they may be even more connected to you than before. They walk beside you differently now, not on a leash or in your lap, but through emotion, through energy, through an invisible thread that remains unbroken. Some people are naturally more open to these signs. Others need time. Grief can be heavy, and when your heart is overwhelmed, it can be harder to feel what's around you. That's okay. Your pet understands. They're not in a rush. They don't need you to be perfect. They simply want you to know they're near, that they're still with you, that your bond matters beyond the limits of life and death. It helps to speak to them, out loud, in your heart, in your thoughts. Tell them what you're feeling. Ask them to visit. Light a candle in their honor. Create a small space that reminds you of them. These acts aren't for ritual's sake alone. They open the energetic door. They send a signal into the ether. I'm listening. I remember. I still love you. And in return, you might find their answer. A sudden warmth. A dream that feels like home. A whisper in your heart when you need it most. Don't dismiss these things. Don't let logic convince you that they're fantasies. They're not. You're not imagining things. You're being loved. And that love, Nan, the same love that watched you while you slept, that waited by the door, that licked your tears away, it's still here. It's just moving differently now. It's reaching you in new ways. Because your pet hasn't stopped loving you. They've just started speaking in a language your soul already knows. And every time your heart feels them, every time you smile through tears, or feel that familiar nudge from nowhere, that's them. Still yours. Still near. Always. There's something about the way an animal looks at you that doesn't need translation. It bypasses words, ideas, logic, and speaks straight to your soul. A glance, a nuzzle, a sigh at the foot of your bed, and suddenly you feel seen in a way that most people will never understand. That's not just instinct, that's emotional intelligence, that's presence, that's consciousness in its purest form. Even now, After they've passed, you can still remember the way they felt you, not just sensed you, but felt you. They knew when your energy shifted, even when your face didn't show it. They knew when to stay close and when to give you space. They didn't need you to explain yourself, they just knew. And that knowing didn't disappear when their body stopped breathing. It became even more expansive. In spirit, animals don't lose their emotions. They become even more emotionally attuned. Their capacity to love, to feel, to care doesn't lessen, it magnifies. They are no longer bound by fear or instinct or survival. They feel with total clarity. They sense with spiritual precision. In fact, their emotional awareness in spirit is often far beyond what humans are capable of in physical form. Because while humans often complicate emotion with thoughts and stories, animals don't. They don't pretend to be okay. They don't manipulate. They don't suppress. When they're joyful, they are joy. When they're loyal, they embody loyalty. When they grieve, they do so with their whole being. Their emotional intelligence is direct, honest, and unfiltered, MD. And that is the sign of a deeply evolved soul. Now, imagine that soul released from the limitations of the body. Imagine their ability to feel you, respond to you, love you, not limited by time or space. You could be sitting in a room miles from where they passed, and still, their spirit brushes against you in a moment of silence. You could be thinking about them in the middle of the night, and suddenly, your heart warms with a presence you can't explain. That is not memory. That is connection. That is their spirit reaching out, emotionally and energetically, because they feel you, still. There are countless accounts of animals returning in dreams that feel more real than waking life. Not just brief images, but encounters filled with emotion. You wake up with tears on your face or laughter in your chest. You remember the way they looked at you, just like before. These dreams don't come from the subconscious, they come from the spirit. Because animals, when in the realm of spirit, often reach out emotionally first. They know that the heart is where you'll feel them the most. Their emotional range doesn't shrink after death, it expands. And it's not just love that they carry, it's wisdom, it's understanding. They often see your pain more clearly after they've passed. And they try to comfort you, not with words, but with energy, with presence, with signs that are small but unmistakable. A butterfly landing where they used to sit. A song that plays the moment you're thinking about them. A breeze that touches your cheek like their nose used to. These aren't coincidences, they're love letters from the other side. In spirit, animals are also incredibly perceptive about the bigger picture of your life. They understand what's coming, they know what you're moving through. They often choose to remain connected to your energetic field, not because they're stuck, but because they want to help guide you through the chapters ahead. This is their way of saying, I'm still here, I'm still with you, I haven't gone anywhere. And sometimes, they choose to come back, not metaphorically, literally. Reincarnation is not limited to humans. In fact, many spiritually aware individuals have spoken of their pets returning in new bodies, different breed, different time, but same soul, the same eyes, the same habits, the same deep bond that reappears instantly, without explanation. You feel it the moment they walk into your life. It's not new love, it's recognition. They may come back when your soul is ready, not always immediately. Sometimes it's years later, when your heart has healed enough to receive them again. But when they return, they do so with intention. Because their love for you didn't end, it evolved. It chose to find you again. And there are signs. The new pet who stares at you like they've known you forever. The strange familiarity in the way they move. The instinctive connection that feels like picking up where you left off. These moments aren't wishful thinking. They are soul markers. And they're real. Sometimes, they return in similar bodies. Sometimes, they return completely different. But their soul carries the same emotional blueprint. They remember. They know who you are. And if you allow yourself to feel without overthinking, you'll know it too. This choice to reincarnate isn't about need. It's about love. It's about unfinished heartwork. It's about the soul bond that couldn't be completed in one lifetime and asked for another chapter. It's not something to chase or force. It happens naturally, in alignment with your journey and theirs. But even if they don't return in physical form, they remain accessible to you, in meditation, in quiet, in love. Their spirit can visit, guide, and even shift your emotional energy from the other side. They're not distant, they're just vibrating differently. And what makes their emotional intelligence in spirit so profound is that they continue to love you without asking for anything in return. They're not waiting for praise, they're not needing reassurance, they know you love them, and they love you still. So when you feel that sudden wave of emotion, that memory that crashes over you without warning, allow it. Let the tears come, let your chest open, because in that moment, their spirit is close. They're not trying to make you sad, they're reminding you that the love is still alive, that the bond never broke, that even in spirit, they are still feeling you, still watching you, still guiding you with the purest, most advanced form of love there is. Because animals don't just feel emotions, they are emotion in motion. They are the living embodiment of compassion, loyalty, presence, and joy. And in spirit, those qualities don't fade, they become divine. So don't doubt what you feel, don't question the connection, and don't underestimate the intelligence of their soul just because they once walked on 4 legs or flew with wings. They are more than animals. They are soul companions. They are emotional healers. And they are still, to this very moment, loving you from beyond. Sometimes a new animal enters your life and the connection is instant. There's no warming up period, no awkward adjustment. They look at you, and it feels like they've known you forever. They find the places in your home that your old pet loved. They curl up in the same spots. They exhibit little quirks or preferences so specific, so eerily familiar, that you're left stunned. Maybe they sleep in the same position, react to the same words, have the same strange habit of tilting their head a certain way, or licking your hand at just the right moment, just like the one you lost. And something inside you whispers, could it be? What if it is? The idea that pets can reincarnate, that they can return to you in a new body to continue the bond you once shared, might sound like wishful thinking to some, but to others, it's not just possible. It's truth. It's something they've lived, something they've felt so deeply that no amount of logic could talk them out of it. Because when the soul of a beloved companion returns, you don't need proof, you just know. Animals are not bound by the same limitations humans place on the soul. They move between lifetimes with fluidity. Their love, their purpose, their soul contracts are carried across the veil, and if the bond was strong enough, if the lessons are not yet complete, or if the love is too powerful to leave behind, they find their way back. Not by accident, not by chance, but with intention. You may find yourself drawn to adopt again long before you expected to. Maybe you swore you'd never get another pet, that the pain of losing your last one was too much. And yet, something pulls you in. A photo, a post online, a spontaneous trip to the shelter, and then you see them, a pair of eyes that look straight into you, not just at you. A spark lights up in your chest. You feel it instantly, the same way you felt it the first time, when they came into your life before, and you start to notice things. They gravitate toward your lap in the same way. They respond to the same nickname you used before. They show fear around the same object, or favorite foods that seem impossible for them to know. And little by little, doubt begins to fall away. Because this isn't just any animal, this is someone. This is family, and your heart recognizes them, even if your mind doesn't understand how it's possible. Some people experience this with shocking clarity. They lose a pet, grieve deeply, and suddenly feel guided toward a new one. When they bring the new companion home, the similarities are undeniable. Same behavior, same routine. Some even run to old hiding spots they couldn't possibly know. Others respond to old commands with ease, or bring you comfort in the same exact ways at the same exact times. These aren't coincidences. They're echoes of a soul that never truly left you. A soul that found a way to come back. It doesn't always happen quickly. Sometimes years pass. Sometimes the soul returns in a different form, a different breed, a different species even. But the essence remains the same. Because the soul is not limited by outer appearance. It carries energy, memory, love. And that energy is felt, not seen. You might feel inexplicably close to your new pet. even if they look nothing like the one you lost. Or perhaps you catch yourself calling them by the old name, only to find they respond without hesitation. The way they comfort you feels familiar. The way they look at you says, "I never really left." These moments are quiet revelations. They unfold slowly, like pages in a story your soul already knows. And one day, you stop asking if it's possible. You simply accept that it is. The love you shared before is what creates the bridge. When an animal loves you so purely, so deeply, that their soul is transformed through the relationship, a sacred imprint is formed. That imprint pulls them back to you. Love, after all, is the most powerful magnet in the universe, and it doesn't fade with time. It calls, it guides, it opens doors. But how do you really know? How can you be sure? The signs are never forced. They don't need to be. If your animal has returned to you, the knowing will live in your body. It will arrive as peace, as certainty, as an ache that lifts the moment you hold them again. You'll feel your grief transform, not disappear, but soften, evolve. It's not the same body, not the same life, but the soul. The soul feels identical, because it is. There's no need for them to prove themselves. They're not here to convince you. They're here to love you again, to walk beside you, to continue what was started before. In some cases, their time with you may be longer than the last. In others, shorter, just long enough to deliver a message, to help you heal, to fulfill a final piece of your shared journey. And then they go again, until the next chapter. But even when they don't come back in physical form, they are still present, still guiding you. Some choose to remain in spirit, to act as protectors from the unseen realms. Others walk with you through dreams and subtle signs. Reincarnation is only one path. Connection is the constant. You may begin to sense a pattern. Every time you lose a piece of your heart, the universe finds a way to return it, not to erase the pain, but to transform it, to remind you that what is real never dies. And every return is a reminder that your love story is eternal. When you open yourself to the possibility, you'll begin to notice more. You'll catch their energy in a look, a sound, a breath. You'll feel their spirit settle into the new body like a familiar coat. And you'll stop asking how. You'll simply say, "Welcome back." Because love like this doesn't end. It loops, it circles, it finds its way home, again and again. And when you least expect it, when you think your heart has been broken beyond repair, it shows up in the most beautiful way. Eyes you've never seen before, holding a soul you've never forgotten. They came back to you, not because they had to, but because they never stopped loving you. Long before you were born, before your first breath or your first heartbeat, there were choices. Your soul, in its eternal wisdom, met with others in the realm of light and intention. Together, you agreed on the lessons you would learn, the paths you would take, and the beings who would walk beside you. Among them were not only human souls, but also the quiet, powerful souls of animals. These were not random companions. They were not afterthoughts. They were part of the plan. When an animal enters your life, it is rarely by coincidence. They show up precisely when your soul calls them in, not because you needed a pet, but because you needed them. That soul, whether wrapped in fur, feathers, or scales, made an agreement with yours, a sacred promise, a contract formed in the invisible, written not in ink, but in energy. They chose you, and you chose them. You might not remember making this agreement. You might not remember the soul meeting that happened before time, but you feel the truth of it when you think about how they came into your life. Maybe it was during a time of chaos, grief, or transition. Maybe it was when your heart was shattered, or when you felt alone. And then, there they were, with eyes that saw you, with energy that wrapped around you like the gentlest embrace. That was not an accident. That was a reunion. In these sacred contracts, animals often come to serve as mirrors, healers, and guardians. They are here to help you remember what you've forgotten, to soften what has hardened, to teach you truths that can't be spoken, only felt. Some come to teach you about love, the kind that doesn't need words or validation, the kind that simply is, unconditional, constant, quietly present in every wag of a tail, every quiet stare, every moment they simply sit by your side with no expectations. They come to show you what it means to be loved just as you are. Others come to teach you about responsibility, about what it means to care for another being, to feed, protect, and nurture them, even when life gets overwhelming. They remind you of your capacity to show up, to be dependable, to be kind even when you're tired or hurting yourself. Some come to open your heart. Maybe you had been closed off, maybe trust didn't come easily, and then they arrived, with no agenda, asking for nothing but your presence. Slowly, they cracked the walls. They reached the places in you that no one else could. And without realizing it, you began to feel again. And sometimes, they come to teach you about grief, about letting go, about the unbearable beauty of temporary love. Their departure may be the first time you truly touched sorrow in its purest form. And yet, even in that pain, they taught you how to honor life, how to say goodbye, how to survive loss while still holding love in your heart. They are not just teachers for you, though. These contracts are not one-sided. Your love helps them grow too. In the realm of soul evolution, animals are on their own path. Just like you, they are learning, evolving, returning to source in more complete expressions of divine love. Your companionship helps them do that. Your presence, your care, your love, these are sacred gifts that allow their souls to experience trust, comfort, connection, and service. For some animals, their incarnation with you may have been their first time living so close to human energy. They chose it as a challenge, to learn about emotion, to navigate complex environments, to offer themselves fully and trust that they would be safe in return. Every hug, every belly rub, every walk in the park wasn't just an act of affection, it was a part of their spiritual education. Others may be older souls. They may have traveled through many lifetimes, and in this one, they came not to learn, but to help you remember who you are. These are the ones who feel like protectors, who seem to understand everything without ever needing to be taught, who comfort you at just the right moment, who look into your eyes and make you feel like they've known you for lifetimes, because they have. These animals don't just love you, they know you, they know your soul, they know your energy, and they agreed to walk with you in this life, no matter how long or short the journey would be. Sometimes, they arrive only for a season, just long enough to deliver a lesson, to shift something inside of you, to prepare you for what's coming next. Other times, they stay for years, a quiet presence that grows roots in your heart so deeply you can't imagine life without them. But whether they stay for days or decades, their purpose is never wasted. And when the contract is complete, when they've done what they came to do, they leave, not out of cruelty, not because they didn't love you, but because their soul's agreement has been fulfilled. They came to give, to teach, to heal. And once that chapter is written, they return to the place from which all souls emerge, the realm of pure light, but their departure doesn't mean the contract ends. Some will return again, in different forms, when your soul calls them. Others will remain close in spirit, guiding you, loving you from beyond. You may not see them, but they are there. In your dreams, in the silence, in the moments when your heart aches and, for no reason at all, you feel warmth wash over you like a whisper. The bond is never broken. In fact, these soul contracts often carry through many lifetimes. You may have been with them before, in a past life, on another continent, in another form, and you will be with them again. The soul remembers, the heart knows. So the next time you find yourself wondering why it hurts so much, or why their presence changed you so deeply, remember this: it's because the love you shared was part of something eternal. It was planned, it was sacred, it was real. They didn't choose you because you were perfect. They chose you because your soul called them. Because, in the quiet before this life began, you made a promise to each other. And even now, that promise holds. You carry them in your heart, yes. But they also carry you in theirs, across dimensions, across lifetimes, across the thin veil that separates here from there. Because love like that doesn't end, it only transforms. There's a reason the image of the rainbow bridge has endured in hearts across the world. It's more than just a comforting story for those grieving the loss of a beloved animal. It touches something deeper, a truth that most can't fully articulate but instinctively feel. The Rainbow Bridge isn't just a metaphor, it's a spiritual echo, a symbolic doorway between dimensions that speaks directly to the soul. And for those who've loved an animal deeply, it is a promise, one that transcends time, space, and even death itself. The image is simple but profound, a lush, sun-drenched field stretching endlessly, where all animals go when they pass from this world. They run freely, healthy and whole again, surrounded by joy and peace, but they are not aimless, they are waiting, watching, because the story says that when your time comes, they will see you, they will run to you, and you will cross the bridge together, Renbam Smore, reunited in a place where nothing can ever separate you again. At first glance, it might sound like a poetic fantasy, but behind the softness of the image lies something metaphysically rich. The idea of the Rainbow Bridge reflects ancient spiritual truths passed down through mystics, indigenous cultures, and near-death experiences. It speaks to the existence of liminal space, a threshold between worlds, a place of reunion, a resting point between lifetimes, where those who loved without conditions are gathered, and where love becomes the compass for reconnection. Colors are not random in spiritual symbolism. A rainbow represents the full spectrum of light, just as each soul radiates a unique frequency. The bridge made of light is not just beautiful, it's symbolic of the vibrational shift that occurs when a soul leaves the dense physical world and enters a higher plane of existence. Animals, by their very nature, dwell close to this higher vibration even in life. They are instinctively in tune with the unseen. When they pass, they transition into that realm almost effortlessly. And so the Rainbow Bridge becomes more than just an emotional comfort. It becomes a spiritual threshold, a beacon of continuity between lifetimes. What many don't realize is that this bridge is not just for the afterlife. It exists now, in moments of stillness, in meditation, in dreams, in love. Every time you think of your pet with genuine, open-hearted love, you walk part of that bridge. You step into that shared field where they still exist, waiting and watching, just beyond the veil. And sometimes, when your heart is quiet enough, you feel them. You don't need to cross all the way to touch them. Love meets in the middle. Imagine for a moment, if you can, closing your eyes and letting your heart slow down. Picture a wide expanse of land, green and golden, shimmering with light. The air is soft and warm, carrying the faint sound of water in the distance. In the center of that land stretches a radiant bridge made of light, colors swirling and dancing like living crystal. The bridge is not built of stone or steel. It's made of vibration, of memory, of love. Now take a slow breath and picture a figure running toward you from the far side. Maybe it's a dog, ears flopping as they bound toward you with joy. Maybe it's a cat, graceful and glowing, moving with purpose. Or a horse, strong and luminous. A rabbit, a bird, a tiny soul you once held in your hands. They're whole again, young, radiant. You see them clearly, not just with your eyes, but with your soul. You feel their energy, that unmistakable signature that only they had. And then they're in your arms again, or by your side, or leaning into your legs just the way they used to. No fear, no pain, just reunion. You hold them, you cry, or maybe you laugh. There is no rush here, no time, only presence, only the overwhelming feeling of homecoming. This is the real power of the Rainbow Bridge, not just in what it symbolizes, but in what it opens within you. Because you don't have to wait for death to begin feeling the reunion. You can begin to touch it now. Through memory, through intention, through spiritual connection. The bridge exists within your heart. Every time you remember them with love, every time you whisper their name into the quiet, every time you choose to believe they are still with you, the bridge glows a little brighter. It's important to understand that this isn't imagination. The soul doesn't forget. Your animal remembers you, remembers the life you shared, remembers the love. And from their side of the veil, they are not frozen in time. They continue to grow, to evolve, but always with you at the center of their story. They return to this bridge again and again, not just waiting for you to arrive, but meeting you halfway when your heart aches for them. Many people who've experienced near-death states speak of seeing animals waiting for them, not as distant memories, but as real, living beings, more radiant and vibrant than ever before. They describe fields filled with movement, with recognition, with the kind of reunion that feels deeper than any human language could express. These are not hallucinations. They are windows into the greater reality, the one your soul already knows exists, even if your mind doesn't yet remember. If you've ever caught yourself saying, "I'll see you again one day," know that it's more than hope, it's truth. That day will come, and when it does, it won't be dark or heavy, it will be light. Joyful, a burst of energy as you cross the bridge and see those eyes looking up at you again. Not as a dream, not as a symbol, but as your companion, real and whole and eternally yours. Until that day, the Rainbow Bridge serves a different purpose. It holds space. It reminds you that love never dies. It gives shape to your longing. It becomes a place your spirit can visit when the grief becomes too much. And the more you visit, the more clearly you'll feel them, not as something lost, but as something present, waiting, listening, loving you, still. So if you ever feel them near, don't question it. If you see them in your dreams, lean into it. If a breeze moves through the room at just the right moment, or a song plays that reminds you of them, or you feel a sudden warmth on your skin like a soft nuzzle, that's not coincidence. That's them, reaching you across the bridge. The Rainbow Bridge is not a place far away. It's not locked behind death. It lives in the space between heartbeats, in the quiet places inside you. And every time you miss them, every time you ache for them, every time you choose to remember instead of forget, you step onto that bridge. And there, just beyond the edge of sight, they're waiting. Not gone, not past, but shining. Still running, still watching, still yours. There comes a moment, after the tears have slowed and the silence becomes familiar, when you start to wonder if maybe they weren't gone at all. Not really. Maybe it's in the way your heart still leaps when you think you hear their footsteps in the hallway. Maybe it's in the sudden memory that appears with such vividness, it's as if they just walked into the room. Or maybe it's in that unexplainable warmth that surrounds you when you're thinking of them late at night. You feel them, not as a thought, as a presence, a knowing, a soul that never truly left. Because that's the truth you may not have dared to believe at first. They're not gone, they never were, they're just closer than you realize. The idea that your beloved animal has completely disappeared into some unreachable realm is only true if you see life as purely physical. But the soul doesn't end at the edge of the body. The bond doesn't break at the moment of death. When they left their physical form, they didn't vanish, they transitioned. They shifted into a version of themselves no longer constrained by biology, by pain, or by time. They became light, they became vibration, they became free. But that freedom didn't take them away from you, it brought them closer. Because now, they are no longer limited to a body. They don't need to be in the same room to feel you. They don't need to walk beside you to know your thoughts. They exist now in a form that can cross time and space in an instant. They can be with you in the middle of the night, in the quiet moments of grief, in the joy of a memory, or the solitude of a morning walk. They are not bound to one place anymore. They're bound only by love. And love, as you've come to learn, has no distance. When you think of them and your heart aches, that ache isn't just sorrow, it's contact. It's your soul brushing against theirs through the thin veil that separates the seen from the unseen. It's a doorway. And they feel it. Every time you remember them, talk to them, cry for them, they feel it. Because connection doesn't require flesh, it requires intention, and your love is a beacon they always return to. So how do you keep connecting with them? You already are. Every time you speak their name aloud, every time you sit in stillness and invite their presence, every time you open your heart instead of shutting it down, that's connection, that's communication, and it's far more real than you've been led to believe. But if you want to feel them more clearly, there are ways to deepen that bridge. Find a space where you feel safe, quiet, undistracted. Close your eyes and breathe, slowly, gently. Call their name in your heart. Picture their face, not as a memory, but as a soul that's still alive in another form. Ask them to come close. Ask them to show you they're still near. Then listen, not with your ears, but with your heart. You may feel warmth on your chest, like the weight of them curled against you. You may hear a sound, a breath, a whisper, a familiar movement in a place that should be still. You may smell something, their scent, their fur, their favorite blanket. These are not tricks of the mind. These are visits, encounters, proof that your bond exists beyond the physical, and the more you open to it, the more it happens. Some people find feathers, paw-shaped imprints in unexpected places, or flashes of them out of the corner of their eye. Others dream of their pet so vividly, they wake up crying, not from sadness, but from reunion. These are all ways they let you know, I'm still here. They want you to heal, but they don't want you to forget. They want you to move forward, but they don't want you to believe that moving on means leaving them behind. They are not in your past. They are part of your now, part of your future, woven into the energy of your soul, in ways that will never unravel. Even when you begin to love again, when you open your heart to another animal, another chapter, they are not replaced. They walk beside that new soul. Sometimes, they even help guide them to you, not out of jealousy, out of love, out of the desire to see your heart full again, because that's what they came for, to help your soul feel again, to make you remember that you were never meant to do this life alone. And when your time comes, when you take your final breath, and your soul lifts from this body, they will be there, the first to greet you, running, flying, soaring into your arms with a joy and recognition that will make every doubt you've ever had fall away in an instant. They are not just animals, they never were. They are eternal souls, wise, loving, luminous beings who chose to walk this life with you, not for convenience, but for purpose, for growth, for love, and your love for them, your grief for them, your memories of them, not today. They are sacred. They were not a pet. They were your mirror, your guardian, your healer, and they still are. So hold on to that. Let it carry you through the moments when the ache feels too much. Let it guide you when you wonder if they're okay, because they are, and more than that, they're still loving you, closer than breath, quieter than thought, right beside you still, always.